Somewhere in your 30s or 40s, something quietly shifted. You didn't announce it. You didn't even fully notice it at first. But one evening, maybe a Friday, you turned down plans you once would have rushed toward and felt nothing but relief. Not guilt, not loneliness. Relief. There was a time you were different. You moved through parties like they were made for you. You stayed late. You made the group chat. You were the one who said yes, always yes, to more, to louder, to later. And somewhere, without a single dramatic decision, you became someone who guards their Sunday morning like it's a rare and precious thing. Someone who drives home from a dinner. A good dinner with people you love and breathes out slowly the second you close the front door. People around you notice. Some worry, some judge. Some say you've become antisocial, distant, boring. Maybe you've started to wonder if they're right. But here's what no one talks about. What if this isn't a retreat? What if it's an arrival? Most people assume that needing more alone time is a sign of something shrinking, energy shrinking, openness shrinking, joy shrinking. But that's rarely the whole truth. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's a sign of something growing. Researchers at Stanford found that as we move through adulthood, our relationship with time fundamentally changes. We stop measuring our lives in how full our calendars are and start measuring them in how alive we feel in the hours we're actually in. The pull towards solitude, toward quiet evenings and long walks in your own company, isn't a symptom of something going wrong. It's your nervous system finally learning what it actually needs. Not escape, precision. Notice what happens in your body when you imagine a full weekend. Every hour spoken for, every meal social, every evening somewhere. There's a tightening, somewhere in the chest or behind the eyes, a faint, preemptive exhaustion. And now, notice what happens when you imagine a Sunday with nothing in it. Just light, just quiet, just you. Something releases. That contrast, that's not introversion as a label. That's your body telling you something true about itself. When you were 23, you didn't feel that tightening. Or maybe you did, and you learned to ignore it because the world rewarded you for ignoring it. You were praised for showing up, for being fun, for being everywhere. Availability was a virtue. Presence was proof of something. But somewhere in the years between then and now, in the meetings and the dinners and the performances of personhood, your body started keeping score. And now it's much harder to ignore. Think back to the version of you who needed to be out there. That person had real reasons. Maybe belonging felt uncertain. Maybe being liked was how you knew you were safe. Maybe the noise outside drowned out something uncomfortable on the inside. Or maybe you genuinely loved it. And that's true too. Both things can be real. But here's what's worth noticing. You built something over those years. Connections, skills, a sense of who you are in a room full of people. You proved something to yourself, if no one else. And when you've built something, you don't need to keep building it the same way. The person who needed to be everywhere was doing something essential. She was mapping the world. He was learning what was out there. They were gathering, and gathering has a natural end. What looks like withdrawal is often the quiet turn inward that only happens after you've been outward long enough to know the difference. There's something happening in your brain that most people never get told about. As your brain matures through your 40s and 50s, it becomes more selective and more efficient, filtering out what doesn't serve rather than absorbing everything. Neuroscientists describe this as the deepening of what's sometimes called crystallized intelligence. Not less capacity, but more precision. Younger brains are drawn to novelty, new faces, new stimulation, new environments. That's not a flaw, it's a feature. Exploration is how we learn. But a maturing brain starts optimizing. It becomes, in the most literal neurological sense, more discerning. It starts asking, quietly, persistently, does this give me energy or cost it? The cave you're retreating to isn't regression. It's what wisdom actually feels like from the inside. The world was not designed for this kind of maturation. We live inside a culture that treats extroversion as evidence of health, busyness as proof of worth, full calendars as the measure of a full life. We celebrate people who are everywhere. We worry about people who are quietly, contentedly, nowhere in particular. A 20-year-old who wants to be alone gets called wise. A 50-year-old who wants to be alone gets called a recluse. They attend the parties. They make the appearances. They perform sociability like a job they're slightly too old for. And then they drive home, windows down, savouring the silence, and wonder why they feel like they're secretly getting away with something. You're not getting away with anything. You're just finally listening to yourself. Here's what might be worth sitting with. The version of you that craved noise was real, completely real. And the version of you that now craves quiet is equally real. They're not opposites. They're the same person at different stages of the same journey. Maybe solitude at this stage isn't absence. Maybe it's a form of presence to yourself that you couldn't afford when the world needed so much of you. What if the cave isn't where you hide, but where you return to yourself? There's a kind of person who spent decades being interesting to others and is only now slowly becoming interesting to themselves. Discovering that they have opinions they've never spoken aloud, that they like mornings, that they'd rather read than explain themselves at a dinner party. That's not antisocial. That's intimate. The relationships you choose now, fewer, deeper, more honest. Those aren't the consolation prize for losing your social energy. They might be what real connection was always supposed to feel like. Not quantity, quality, not performance, presence. Remember that Friday evening. The relief when you said no. That relief wasn't loneliness in disguise. It wasn't failure. It was your life, finally fitting you. You don't owe anyone the version of yourself that needed to be everywhere. That version served its purpose. It brought you here. The cave you've built, the Sunday mornings, the quiet evenings, the long stretches of your own company. That's not a symptom. That's a home. Not every life needs to get louder as it deepens. Some lives get quieter, and in that quiet, more real. You're not retreating, you're arriving, not shrinking, becoming more precise, not closed, selective. The tree doesn't apologize for dropping leaves in autumn. It's not dying, it's choosing what to keep. You've earned this quiet. You've built this inner room over decades. You're allowed to live in it. Not every version of you was wrong. Not every change is loss. You're not broken, you're becoming. I want to ask you something. Think about the moment you first noticed yourself changing. That first time you genuinely preferred to stay home and felt no guilt about it. When was that? And what had changed in your life that made that shift possible? Tell me in the comments, because your answer might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. I'll be reading everyone